How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. People are going to be pissed at me for making this video. People are going to think that I'm clickbaiting, saying that Bitcoin could fall pretty drastically here soon or could crash, but it's definitely true. And if you give me 2 minutes into the video, I'll explain how I'm not clickbaiting, how this actually is a very valuable video for a lot of people if you pay attention instead of just, going down to the comments right away. Bitcoin is going to fall, and some people are calling for a massive crash to happen right now. Robert Kiyosaki, we'll talk about him. I think he's wrong in a lot of ways, but he's talking about a massive crash happening here soon. And again, stay through to the video. I'm not saying that he's right by any means, but I think it's important to plan for what we're going to do during the next crash. So many people come into crypto, and especially if they're newer, they feel very emotional about buying. When the market's going up, they buy heavier and heavier. When it's crashing, they might buy heavy the first day or two, and then they run out of cash, and then it keeps on falling, and then they hear bad headlines, and then they sell, and then we rebound. We go back up to new highs. So I want to go through why there could be a crash and what I'm going to be doing if that happens. If you don't mind, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this. Also, if you want to trade crypto, there's a link to Bydfi or Bydfi, however you want to say it, down below in the comment section and in the description area. There they have 20 to 60% bonuses depending on how much you deposit. It goes for another 2 days. And they have Coin M on here, so you can actually trade crypto with the coin as collateral. For example, you can trade Bitcoin with Bitcoin as collateral, or you can just use USDT like most exchanges allow you to use. But this can actually help you get a lot more of the underlying token and trade with the token. So pretty cool there. Check that out underneath the video. Also, later in the video, I will be actually talking about something a little bit different. We'll be going through 3 things that I bought recently that I thought were great value, and I'm very glad I bought. And it's not cryptos, it's like real world things. So let's get into it. Bitcoin. Obviously sitting around $105,000 here today. It was up at 106 last night, then kind of came down a little bit. The broader market is mixed today. You can see the NASDAQ's up 0.4%, but Dow's down a little bit. We are rebounding a little bit after some economic data came in earlier on jobs and manufacturing. Keep in mind, tomorrow, the Trump administration has asked countries to submit their final trade deals to avoid new tariffs. So, like I said earlier, so many people feel so emotional, and they see something like this, and maybe the market falls down, or maybe it pumps, and they change their buying plan. They read something like this. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says, do not say I didn't warn anyone. As predicted in my book, Rich Dad's Prophecy, 2013, the biggest crash in history is coming. I'm afraid the crash time is now and throughout this summer. Unfortunately, millions, especially my generation of boomers, will be wiped out when the stock and bond markets crash. The good news is millions who are proactive may become extremely rich. And as you know, I want you to be one of those that become extremely rich. Over the summer, as stock, bond, and real estate markets crash, billions will rush into gold, silver, and Bitcoin. The biggest bargain today is silver. He shows silver for a little bit. He's going to go to his local gold and silver dealer and trade fake money for real silver. No ETFs, the biggest bargain today. I actually saw a couple people talking about silver recently. He says, what are you going to do tomorrow? Grow richer or grow poorer? Please choose to get richer. Now, someone said, Grok, how many times has Robert predicted the crash after 2008? It says that he's predicted the financial crash at least 10 times since 2008, between 2011 and 2013. I think this is extremely wrong. I scrolled back like a month and a half, and you can see the end is here. What if you threw a party and no one showed up? That's what just happened yesterday. I'm talking about how the party is over, hyperinflation is here, millions, young and old, will be wiped out financially. That's from 2 weeks ago. Then 2 weeks before that, OMG, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan have decided to stop selling cars in the US. This will mean massive unemployment and crash of many towns dependent upon Japanese cars. As pilots say, strap in tight and prepare for crash. Then just a few days before that, repeating myself again from my book, Rich Dad's Prophecy, my prediction of the biggest stock market crash in history is now happening. I hope I'm wrong, but as forecasted, the biggest market crashes in stocks, bonds, and real estate are about to happen in the very, very near future. This is why I've been investing in gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Then just a few days before that, I'm almost done. But a few days before that, he said, makes me so sad. In 2025, credit card debt is at all-time highs. U.S. debt at all-time highs. Unemployment is rising. 401ks are losing. Pensions are being stolen. USA may be heading for a greater depression. Okay, so this is like 4 or 5 times in the last month and a half. He's been talking about the crash of everything, but gold, silver, and Bitcoin. So I think he's probably called this a couple hundred times. People continue to call for the crash of a lot of assets, right? Whether it's stocks, Bitcoin, real estate. I don't think they're really going anywhere, except if we see a massive recession or depression, which even then we've been shown over the last 5 years or so that the Fed and the government is willing to come in and bail out the markets. Maybe that's because we're in a pretty rough spot overall. Like, letting it naturally sort itself out would have so much backlash and prices would fall down so much. But the Fed's willing to come in, the government's willing to come in and print money. And it's not just the US, it's every country across the world. The US is actually not lowering rates quite as aggressively, well, really aggressively at all. They're not lowering rates, while a lot of other countries are trying to stimulate the economy. So the fact is we're going to get bailed out most likely, but we can see drops short term. Like, how many times has this happened in Bitcoin where we saw a 30% drop? We've had a 30% drop the last 2 years. When we went from 74,000 down to 49,000, 32% drop. When we went from 109 down to 75, 74 just a couple months ago, that was another 32% drop. We're going to constantly see crashes. I mean, even after the ETFs were approved, we went from 48 down to 38. That's a 25% move right there. And that's just over a few days. So we're going to constantly see crashes in the market. Same thing with the stock market, right? We had a crash, a literal crash, 20% plus in the stock market this year. Real estate's a little bit different. There's so much pent-up demand for real estate. And you can see investors buy at pretty high expensive levels as well, just willing to take like a 5% return or even less, right? So the fact is we're going to see constant crashes. Now, the biggest crash of all time, calling for the end, I don't think that's smart. I think that gets people scared and doesn't allow them to actually accumulate assets over time. Now, if you go buy Bitcoin, you're probably going to be fine, right? Gold and silver, gold's performed really well this year. I still don't like it because if I'm going to buy an unproductive asset, I'd rather buy Bitcoin, which is being adopted all the time right now, which has more volatility, so it has more opportunities to buy on discounts. You can see more and more companies are buying Bitcoin. Solar Bank announced a Bitcoin treasury strategy. K33 made its first Bitcoin purchase. 10 Bitcoin is now held on their balance sheet. Not a ton, but there are now well over 100 companies doing this. Donald Trump Jr. just went on and talked about why the Trump family is going all in on Bitcoin. He talked for 2 minutes and 30 seconds on CNBC about this. So I'd rather buy something like that has growing adoption than something like gold, which, it's used as just a financial instrument by people that have bought it for years and years. And they rotate in, they rotate out, they rotate in, they rotate out. Of course, there are some people that hold it and accumulate it for a long time, but it's not like it's being widely adopted or used by the younger generation, or like it's really growing in adoption, right? We've had a big year for it, but it's vastly outperformed what it's done in the past. Silver, same thing. Like, I don't feel very strongly about silver, but Bitcoin, again, there's so many people that find it so compelling, and I feel it's very compelling too. It's like gold without any of the risks of holding gold or transferring gold. It's easily divisible, lower fees than gold as well. So I really love Bitcoin. Not that you should love an asset, but I really like Bitcoin. I think it's going to be extremely valuable in the future. I think stocks are going to be extremely valuable. I think real estate too. Real estate's a little bit more interesting with AI coming and probably lowering the cost of housing, but that could be decades down the line. So I think equities are still going to do really well. Equities are, people think about equities as just Fugazi, but they're ownership in the companies that are making products that people are buying across the world. So if you buy the S&P 500, you're buying Amazon, you're getting a tiny fraction of a profit every time a package is delivered. Same thing when you see a Google ad, right? If you're a Google owner, an S&P 500 owner, you're getting a small fraction of that ad revenue, right? So I think these assets will continue to grow over the following, decades. Now, what about if there is a crash that happens? Well, there are two different ways that it could go. First of all, it could be a crash that lasts a very long time. Like we saw from the last bull market, it lasted, well over a year, and we went down 75%. We then went sideways for a year or so. And yeah, it was really tough. It was really tough for a lot of people. A lot of people lost money, or, their crypto was taken away from them because they put it on different exchanges or didn't securely store it. So that can happen. We can see a very long dip, or we could see a very short dip and then a recovery, right? So how do we approach this, right? Because this is going to happen. We're going to see a 30, 40, 50% dip again. We've seen 30% dips regularly. So let's talk about the first one. If we go into a dip, right? Let's say all of a sudden we go down to 100,000. We go down to 100,000. Then we go down to 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. I don't think we're going back down to 20, but let's say we go down to 50, 60,000. I'm going to be accumulating. I'm going to be buying, right? So my plan, if we go down for a couple months and we start breaking to new lows, I would consider a new low under 74,000, right? Because that's where we had our recent macro low. Before that, it was 50,000. I mean, just look at this. It's beautiful, right? We keep on seeing higher lows. Before that, it was 25,000. Before that, 16,000. So we continue to see higher lows over time. But let's say we break down. I think it would be a pretty good indicator that maybe we're in, for trouble if we fall under 74,000. I'm going to be dollar cost averaging, right? I'm not going to go out and buy a ton of Bitcoin, like just one clip buy Bitcoin at $70,000. No, I'm going to be dollar cost averaging, right? I'm going to look at the cash I have available, how much I'm making, and then I'm going to take a percentage of that to go dollar cost average into Bitcoin, or most likely the Bitcoin ETFs for security reasons, right? I'm going to go dollar cost average into Bitcoin, and I'm just going to keep that buy order throughout the entire bear market. If my income goes down significantly and I can't afford to dollar cost average at that level, I will lower it and continue to buy. So again, I'm looking at the price of 74,000, just dollar cost average throughout the entire bear market. Doesn't matter if we go up or down or whatever. Now we start breaking up to new all-time highs again, then I'll lay off the dollar cost averaging, right? So maybe we dip down to 70,000 and I only buy for a couple weeks and then we continue back up. Okay, well, I got some additional Bitcoin, but I'll lay off once we approach all-time highs. Now, what if we just see a nice 30% dip, 20% dip, whatever that is? Well, something that I love to do is leverage trade. So I know it's not right for everyone, but when we see these 20, 30% dips, something I absolutely love to do and has performed really well is open a leverage position, especially when we're down about 20% or so. I open up a 3x or 5x long on Bitcoin. And now that I use Bydfi, I can use Bitcoin as collateral. And that allows me, let's say I open up a 3x position on Bitcoin when we're down 20% from here. That means we could fall another 33% down before I get liquidated. So let's say we go down to, let's just make it easy numbers, $80,000. From there, or let's say $90,000. We go down to $90,000. I open up a 3x long position on Bitcoin. That means that my liquidation price would be somewhere around $60,000. So I have a lot of room for error if we continue falling down. And if we approach that $60,000 mark and I think, maybe we're going to go back up, I could always add some margin, right? Now, I'm not putting in 5, 10% of my portfolio or anything like that, but I'm putting in money that I'm willing to lose, but will still be, a nice payday if we bounce back up. I love doing this, and this is something that I've been able to do and make a significant amount of money. You can see one of my bigger trades here on Blowfin. Blowfin was one of the first leverage exchanges I used. Let's see if it will load. I have a position that's up 643% because I did this like a year ago. Basically, when we were at 55,000, I was able to get access to 7x Bitcoin, and now I have a 643% return. You can see $21,000 in the green. So that's what I plan to do if we see a short dip. One of these is coming at some point. Now, the question is just like, does it happen now? Or does it happen when we're at 130,000? Does that happen when we're at 150, 250? I don't know, which is why I'm not trying to sell everything and time out of the market. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of newer people do, I should say, or want to do. They say, well, if we're going to keep on falling down, why don't I just sell and then buy back in at a lower price? Okay, well, good luck with that. The tough thing is you don't know how far we're going to go. You don't know how long it will take. So how do you buy back in? Let's say you're right. You sell right here at 105,800, and then we fall down to 103,000. Well, is that enough of a dip, or should you wait, right? Like if you sell out and then you buy back in at 103 and then we fall to 100, you might have the bright idea to do it again, but maybe we bounce right back up to 110. Then do you buy back in? You would have actually lost Bitcoin in that circumstance. What if you're wrong and we go back up? Do you panic buy? Do you panic buy and buy at 115,000? Like, it's just easier to hold instead of trying to finesse the market, trying to guess when we're going to fall back down and back up. Like, that is not the same thing as low leverage longs where you realize you have a lot of buffer. You're actually getting into the market. You're not trying to get out of the market necessarily. You're not trying to tie back in, and there are a lot of tax consequences too to selling your entire bag if you have any kind of profit and then trying to buy back in. I use small percentages of my portfolio to trade with. I do not trade with the majority of it. I think that's a bad idea. And if you're someone with under a couple $1,000s worth of Bitcoin or even $10,000, I'd focus more on accumulating more rather than trying to time when to buy your bag and sell your bag and stuff like that, back and forth in one clip. Now, let me know your thoughts on all that underneath the video. I want to talk about some things that I bought that I actually think are extremely valuable recently. And a little bit different, but I saw someone posting on Twitter, and this is probably a common thing, something common that's worth hating on, or something that people commonly hate on. They said basically, why would anyone ever use DoorDash? Like, it seems like such a waste. You pay $17 in fees and you save yourself the 9-minute car ride. Like, are you that lazy or something like that? And I found it interesting because this is actually how I used to think about it a lot, or Uber Eats. I used to think pretty similarly, but recently I started to use both of these, and I think they're extremely valuable in certain situations. Let me know if you like this kind of thing too. I can do this in the future too. This is not like my top 3 things, but these are 3 things that I was thinking about today that I think are pretty valuable. I started to use DoorDash and Uber Eats recently because, one, I have the baby. I have the Bitcoin baby, right? We have a young baby. I also have my own business. So like, there's not a lot of time. There are a couple things too that have kind of sucked some time out of my schedule recently. So like, I think I have much less time than even most newborn newborn babies' parents. But I started to use this, and I feel like it's such a good use of time if you have a young baby, or if you have your own business and you can go make more than that money. Like, there are many times where I can't work when I really want to. It doesn't work. It's just physically not possible. And this has saved a lot of time. We started using it maybe 6 months ago, and I can make $100, $200 and save myself a car ride out and back or something like that. And I think it's extremely valuable. How most people use it though is they're sitting at home maybe with their significant other, maybe not. Maybe they're drinking or smoking and they're like, let's just buy some extra food when they have food sitting in their fridge that they just don't want to make, or they don't want that food. That is a little bit different. I don't think that's worth it for most people, or just even if you can't make your own money, or like if you just have a lot of time in general, a lot of off time, and you're just sitting around. Like, I personally like driving to and from the restaurants to pick up food, or even going to the grocery store. I really enjoy it. But yeah, I think a lot of people use it kind of in a wasteful way. And a lot of people can't afford that extra $17. Another thing, it's extremely valuable that maybe you want to consider: a coffee warmer. I have a coffee warmer, something that I hadn't really even thought about until a couple of years ago, but you can set it right on your side table. And if you're working, or maybe you're reading a book or something, it can keep your coffee nice and warm for you. So you don't have to drink it cold or go to the microwave over and over. My wife is probably the slowest coffee drinker in the world. I constantly have to go to the microwave for her, but I got her one as well. And last thing on my list, shelves. I bought some really heavy duty racks, like metal racks that take a while to construct. They're 6 feet tall, like 3 feet wide, 2 feet deep. And I bought a ton of them for our garage, and I've been building them recently. And yeah, just getting something done that I had to get done, and it makes our garage look a lot better, because before that, even now, before I'm done putting all the racks together, I have a lot of stuff on the ground. And this is just going to look much better, look much more professional, or much cleaner. It's going to be easier to clean the garage. So yeah, not procrastinating is something that's made me feel better too, and I was able to give them at a bit of a deal too. So let me know down below in the comment section if you like this, and let me know what you bought recently that you think is very valuable, besides Bitcoin, besides crypto, right? Like something that's a real life item that you think is valuable, and it has made your life easier or better. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Bitcoin moving close to 106,000. Nice to see. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. I really do appreciate it. If you want to trade crypto, there's a link to WEEX. You can see the WEEX link underneath the video, and there's also a link to Bydfi, BTCC, etc. underneath the video. Thank you so much. I'll see you all soon. Bye.